Hi guys, this here is a follow-up video to the Kyosho Fazer project car. This was a 1970 Kyosho Fazer MK2 model that I ended up converting into a 1969 General Lee Charger. Just kind of want to go over a few things that I ran into myself. Um, First of all, ended up being quite a lot more involved than I thought it would be. I watched an awful lot of videos and checked out one of the Kyosho conversion videos that Jim on the General Lee RC page did. He was a huge help on all this. I mean, I asked him probably a bazillion and one questions about things. Some things that may have been partially kind of in the video and other things that weren't really. But either way, huge shout out to him. If you have any, questions, you ought to take a look at that video first. It shows you a huge amount of what to do. But I just want to go over a few things that maybe weren't necessarily covered or the things involved with some of the things that I didn't think would be involved. First off, I'm not really a hobbyist. I mean, I owned a Blackfoot back in the day, but my dad built it for me. I never had to work on it, and I never built it. So we raced them and had fun with them. That was it. I've never been into Dungeons and Dragons or anything involving painting small models or anything like that. This is literally, I'm 48 years old, and the first time I've ever done anything like this with a model ever. So one of the first things I would like to start with, I guess, is that what kind of begin with the 3D printed parts. I had a friend that went ahead and did that for me. That went relatively smooth. As far as finishing of them, I didn't really sand them much. Mostly I just kind of did some of the flat surfaces, like across the bead on the wheels here. I just went ahead and did that, and then I just hit them with some Rust-Oleum 2X paint primer all in one. They turned out really nice. Overall, I mean, yeah, if you look down in the center, you can probably see that there's some lines, but I mean, we're not all looking that close. I mean, even from just here, like 2 feet away, it looks amazing. And after doing that, I just went ahead and hit them up with the paint marker, which is just one of these guys here, and did all the lines on it, and that did the trick. I tried painting the posts here, which I don't know how good of an idea that was or wasn't. When it finally gets hung up on the shelf, I'll probably end up touching these up a little bit so it matches the body, but they're just going to scrape up over and over again. I wasn't thinking on the rears because they're popping out where the window's at, so I had an orange stick sticking up, so I had to scrape these back off. One other little note while I'm holding this here, I put some little rubber grommets on this that I just found at a hardware store to keep the body jostling to a minimum. I had them on the front, but then it messed with the bumper, the push bar height, so I may or may not put those back on. It's pretty tight as is. Push bar on this is a little wonky. You can kind of see maybe here, it's like sticking out a little higher on one side than the other, so it's a little crooked. The main thing with that was due to the Kydex piece here being not necessarily cut crooked, but I think it's just bent a little crooked. I need to like bend one side out or up, or I may just cut another piece and make it a little bit longer. This originally started out as like a 3x3 piece, and I think I need to make it like maybe 3 1/4 to have a little bit more space to mess with. On to stuff with the body here. One of the things I wasn't really thinking about, is the amount of tape and time it would be involved with taping off areas of the body. One of the first things that I did do, however, was just remove this back strip here along the back, and that was actually tougher than I thought it would be because it was stuck on really good, but I peeled that off and then just painted the heads of these screws and reassembled it later on. Getting these markers cut out of that rear was kind of a pain, but again, I'm not used to using like an X-Acto knife, and I guess I did a pretty good job at it, but I was a little bit worried with that because my experience with the X-Acto is pretty limited. First major thing that I had done with the body was doing the rear end here. The painting of the blackout area wasn't so bad, but again, it did require a fair amount of tape off. To get the details right on that, it took quite a bit. I mean, I've kind of a perfectionist and have a little bit of an OCD tendencies. So one of the things I was wanting to get right on this was painting this lower lens area here, which on the real cars, this is kind of part of where the lights light up at, a reflector space. So I went out and did some looking and found some of this nail polish. I ended up buying 2 or 3 different ones, but they were like buy 2 get 1 free. It was like $5, but I found this paparazzi brand stuff at I think it was like Walgreens or wherever, Walgreens or one of those stores. And the color that I ended up getting here that matched was Ready Set Action. And overall, that went really, really, really well with the sticker that's in the back there. Another thing I also did was painted the upper lip there, because the side and upper area I painted black, because it normally on those it should be blacked out as well. But yeah, doing the detail in around there, getting this masked all off and getting the upper and the lower at different times was real pain, but you know, in the end it worked out really well. About the only thing I didn't do that was quite right is I didn't leave quite enough chrome in the center there, but you know, it is what it is. I'm not going to try and scrape it off now. The decals, actually, because I had some experience doing like arcade artwork, which was actually done with more of a sticker that was like a vinyl sticker with like a roller, was relatively easy. These, because I was able to use that rapid tack stuff, this stuff here, to spray on and make it liquid where I could move it around, it made it so much easier than trying to do arcade artwork. I just sprayed it on both sides and just kind of moved it around. I didn't go to the detail that Jim did with doing, like, you know, all the markings, like, you know, like lines everywhere. I kind of just put a couple pieces of tape like here and here and here and here off the reference corners and just, you know, stuck it in place, and really I didn't have to do a whole lot. I did use like it was like a squeegee or maybe an old credit card piece, and just kind of flattened it down as I went, and that went really smoothly. Honestly, I was a lot more worried about getting some of these decals on than it ended up being. I was worried about nothing. I started with a little tiny one here because it was the smallest one, and then I ended up moving on to the O1s on the side. Actually, I take that back. I put this little Charger RT one on the back here first at some point, and actually the one that's here on the grill. One of these has a little bit of a bubble in it on the door here. It's really, really hard to see, but it was the first one that I did, and I just really didn't quite squeegee it out enough when I first did it, and it dried that way, no big deal. I mean, you can't really see it unless you're in absolutely the wrong light. But yeah, those went on pretty easy, and as far as keying where you need to put it, I mean, it's like, you got to start, you know, where you're basically not on these little raised pieces, and stop like right at the door handle and make sure it's, you know, above the very bottom of the door here. So I mean, there's kind of the line right there where the door ends. I mean, it's, you can only place it so wrong if you kind of base it off of where the decal for the handle is, and these marks here in the bottom of the door. It goes on pretty easy. Again, the top wasn't so hard. I mean, you just kind of eyeball it, at least I did. The general late part here was just kind of looking at like where the pillar starts right here, and then the fact that it just kind of trailed off just past where the brake is on both sides. So anyway, that's info on that part there. Last part really was the biggest pain in the ass of all of them was this grill. I was sweating this one for weeks, and I really was questioning just trying to do the, you know, the painted upper and putting in a nose piece, because I was really worried about messing it up. But I don't know. I probably spent 4 to 6 hours between dealing with this grill piece and this carving this bumper up here, but it turned out really, really nice. The hardest part about doing all that, really, I mean, it wasn't even really finishing the grill. I mean, that was pretty easy. I sanded it a little, hit it with some chromish paint that was kind of a little on the gray side because they're really not crazy chromy on these grills. And then that was after hitting it with a little bit of black primer at first, and then I just drew that line on around there on the back piece with the paint pens. And other than that, that was the finish for that part. Now the mounting in there part was kind of the pain, which was basically starting with super glue around the little lip that's in there, kind of getting that into place, and all the while being worried that it was going to squirt out too much around the front and I'd be able to see it, you know, it'd turn out white and all yucky and weird. I went a little minimal on the super glue around there originally, and then just really packed it full of that shoe goo stuff. And I mean, I tell you, that stuff, once it's in there, it's in there. It's not going anywhere. Absolutely. But yeah, once I got that all in there, it was super solid. The whole trimming of the grill was real white knuckle because, again, I kept taping off and retaping off and marking this, trying to get it closer and closer and closer to where I wanted it. But I mean, when you're done, basically, this bottom piece is going to be just completely flat, and then you might have a little bit of a bow to it, but that's because of the shape of the way this bumper was made. It's got a little bit of a bend there, so nothing you can do about that. That's just the way the piece is. But yeah, trimming it this way and then also down this way just took a really long time, and it was very tedious. You know, but in the end, it all worked out. But I was really sweating that. Yeah, my camera cut me off there, but yeah, as I was saying, this whole front end just really had me sweating bullets for a long time thinking about what I was going to do with that. But in the end, I'm super happy that I went ahead and did the full conversion and cut out and everything. One thing to note, I mean, is it's, you know, really hard to get it cut to match that thing. I mean, it's a very specific size and shape. Just go as slowly as you can with some Dremels and you'll get there. This side here is pretty much perfect. This side here is maybe just a smidge off, but not by much. I mean, you got to try and use like rounded tools in there, but you got to make sure you're using small enough tools to where you can go up and down and not round it out. That's one thing I can caution anybody on more than anything, is just keep your tool moving and try not to create any digs anywhere that you're going to have to, you know, correct. And if you're past the line at some point, you may be too far into it to where you can correct it. But so overall, yeah, I mean, I had a ton of time in this. I mean, I probably spent about 24 full hours working on this over the course of roughly a month. You know, I just do a couple hours here or there, you know, setting things up. When I was doing the paint work, I'd set something up and then, you know, let it sit overnight, come back the next day, do something else small. I feel like that was probably the best way to do it, you know, just to not keep them driving you crazy. But as far as other things to mention, as far as like total cost and everything, I mean, ended up having probably close to, it's about $500 wrapped up in all of it. I did do a price sheet here, which I put somewhere here. I mean, basically between like the car and your basic parts, you're gonna have, you know, roughly about $400 wrapped up in it by the time you do. You know, the car is going to cost you somewhere around $300 roughly, unless you find it for a steal. I mean, the average price shipped or with tax is going to cost you somewhere between $270 and $320 probably. Then you got your 3D files, somebody to 3D print, most likely tires, because I got special tires for those 3D printed rims. you got your decals, you know, some miscellaneous hardware and paints. So, I mean, my total ended up coming down to about 520 bucks total, including the car. There's a few things that you might not have to spend money on if you're a hobbyist already. A few things that I kind of added to it that I really didn't end up using a whole lot was these scissors. I mean, yeah, I did use them, but I could have got by without them. I kind of poked these through the holes just to start snipping, and I made a box, but I did probably 50% of the cutting with the Dremel after that fact. A couple other things that I got that probably were, you know, going to be useless for most people is I did get some like chrome paints and brushes. The paint pens did most of the heavy lifting for all the small lining type stuff. I thought I was going to probably end up using this for the inside grill part, and after trying to mess with it with the paint pen a little bit, it just wasn't happening. I thought, and I didn't even really bother with this. I think I tested this on a piece somewhere, and I was just like, no, that's not going to work. So definitely go spray can with some sort of grayish chrome color for the inside grill if you can. And then if you want to touch up the edges with a little bit more of a chromey color, like way out here on the edges, you can. But I mean, honestly, if you look at most of these grills compared to like the 70, which was crazy chrome like this, they have kind of just a matte gray look to them for the most part on a real one. So you could probably almost just use a gray paint, it would be fine. But you know, metallic gray or, you know, kind of a semi-chrome is definitely not bad. I know some people have trouble getting a hold of this if they're not in the States. This paint matches for the little pieces that you might want to do in orange perfectly. Again, this can and this can here I barely used. That's just one of those things, you know, if you spend 10 bucks, you didn't use it that much. I feel like half these supplies could be shipped to the next guy doing a project like this, and they could use just this much more of this product, because I bought this just for the sticker application. I used like maybe 20 pumps worth. There's probably 1,000 pumps in this thing. Same thing with this. So anyway, the one thing I will say that I used a ton of was this shoe goo. I mean, I probably ended up using about, I don't know, half or maybe a third at least of this, and I fixed a pair of shoes. So that stuff was great. Beyond that, another cautionary thing I think I kind of mentioned earlier was like trimming the Kydex. I'd probably trim this to be like 3.5 by 3.5 or 3 by 3.5, with the 3.5 being the part that extends towards the front of the car where the push bar would actually go. Just because where this sits here, you want it to be long enough to be able to get it up and out, and also preferably like away from the grill just a little bit so it doesn't necessarily rub. So that'll probably be the one thing that I end up doing is recutting this piece, just because I'm not quite 100% happy with that, but it's pretty nitpicky. Kydex, I'd never worked with this stuff before either, but I tell you, if you got a vise and you got a heat gun, this stuff, I mean, it bends and stays pretty easily. It's like magic. It's really weird. That's why I think I'm going to redo that piece, because I think second or third time I try and mess with it, I'll get it perfect. As far as the decals concerned, if you're getting them from the MCI Racing, definitely make sure you get the long flagged version. This was actually a mistake that was sent to me first, because they made a change in their website and they have these small flag versions. The large flag one will basically take up more like this amount of space. I was kind of fortunate to have a second set sent to me for free, because when I was actually doing the decals, I was sweating doing that a little less because I had a backup on a couple of them. But, you know, like I said, it ended up not being that hard. Really, I'm trying to think if there's any other final thoughts on it. Overall, I mean, it was an awesome project. I'm super glad that I did it. I'm going to have a hard time trying to actually drive this like it's supposed to be driven. I'm probably going to do a bunch of like photo shoots if I can find some spots where I can put this and make it look like it's jumping or doing something cool. Um, and then I'm probably gonna have like my dad or somebody make me some sort of a mount to put this on, like in the corner of my room or something, to make it look like it's jumping. Maybe I'll hang it from the ceiling, I don't know. But probably try and keep it in really nice, clean condition, just because I'm really proud of how that thing turned out, and I want to keep it nice looking. If anything, I may end up buying one of the other Kyosho models, the other Charger, just to kind of really get driving on it, and may have some fun with it. But also those other ones are a lot faster too. So this one here is probably going to end up being the shelf queen. But at any rate, guys, if this provides any value to you at all, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. Well, you can like and subscribe if you want. I'm not really that big of a YouTube person. But there you go. There it is. And enjoy, guys. Happy building for any of you guys that are trying to build one of your own. Thanks. Have a good one. Something I wanted to mention that wasn't mentioned in the main video is that when I had glued in the front grille on the sides of the front grille, the paint did check a little bit after putting it in with the super glue. I looked, and at pictures I had taken previous to actually gluing it, it wasn't checked up. And it was one of the first things I noticed after I glued it into place, was that there was just a little bit of finish checking on the corners. It's nothing big, and really I haven't reviewed the video yet to see if you can even really pick it out in the main video. It's very minor, and I'm pretty picky, so it probably won't bother most people, but just be aware that there's a possibility if you put enough super glue in there, or maybe it's just if there was an abundance of shoe goo on the sides, maybe if it's a reaction, or maybe it's something with the expansion there that may have caused it to possibly give some little check marks. But other than that, I figured it was worth mentioning, and I forgot to mention it in the main video. But other than that, that's it. Bonus footage is done. Have a good one.